I've always been a little too curious for my own good. I think that's what got me into trouble in the first place. I don't know if it was boredom or the fact that the internet is basically a rabbit hole of weird shit. But I started exploring parts of the web I had no business being in. I'm not a hacker or anything. I'm just some guy who wanted to see what all the fuss was about with the dark web. I know it sounds cliche, but it started innocently enough. You know, poking around, trying to find those hidden marketplaces everyone talks about. Drugs, stolen credit cards, even hitmen for hire. They're all there if you dig deep enough. But I wasn't after that stuff. I was just curious. I wanted to see the kind of things people don't want you to see. One night, after scrolling through countless forums and clicking on way too many sketchy links, I found something that caught my eye. It was a forum thread titled "The Truth About Them." The description was vague, just a single line: "They're not who you think they are. None of them are." It had hundreds of comments, but the thread wasn't accessible until you joined the forum. Against my better judgment, I signed up. The site required me to create a username and agree to some rules, which included this weird line: "What you learn here, you cannot unlearn." I should have stopped there. I swear if I could go back, I'd just close the laptop and go to bed. But I didn't. I clicked agree and dove in. The first thing I noticed was how organized everything was. It wasn't the chaotic mess I expected from a dark web forum. There were categories for everything: truths about society, government secrets, media manipulation, and the one that drew me in, the elite. The posts in that section were locked unless you had a certain level of access. Luckily, new users got a 1-week trial, so I started reading. The posts were bizarre. People claimed that world leaders, billionaires, and celebrities were part of some secret group controlling everything. That wasn't exactly groundbreaking. Conspiracy theories like that are a dime a dozen. But then I found a post titled "They're Not Human." It had over 10,000 views and a warning in red text: "Viewer discretion advised." I clicked on it. The post was long, filled with grainy images, blurry screenshots, and a wall of text written in this frantic, almost desperate tone. The author claimed to have worked in Hollywood as a special effects artist. He said he'd been hired by a big-name studio to do CGI touch-ups on a film starring one of the most famous actors in the world. He didn't name the actor, but he didn't have to. From the descriptions, I knew exactly who it was. Everyone knows this guy. He's been in everything from action movies to romantic comedies. Anyway, this effects guy said that during post-production, they had to fix something about the actor. Not wrinkles or skin blemishes, something else. Apparently, during certain scenes, the actor's eyes looked wrong. Not out of focus or misaligned, just wrong. He described them as too reflective, like glass, and said that in a few frames you could see shapes in them. Not reflections of the crew or the set, something else entirely. He uploaded a screenshot, but it was pixelated as hell. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about it. The eyes didn't look human. The guy went on to say that this wasn't an isolated incident. He claimed that most A-list celebrities required touch-ups like this. Some had skin that looked unnatural under certain lighting. Others had smiles that stretched too far, or movements that didn't align with the laws of physics. He said he once worked on a project where they had to edit out what looked like extra fingers on an actress's hand. The post ended with a link to a video file. The comments section was full of warnings. Don't watch it alone. This shit will mess you up. I haven't slept in 2 days after seeing this. So, of course, I downloaded it. The file was about 15 minutes long and titled proof.mp4. I started watching, and at first it seemed like a compilation of random celebrity clips, interviews, award shows, behind-the-scenes footage. But then the anomalies started. In one clip, a famous pop singer was accepting an award, and as she smiled, her teeth looked wrong, like they were too sharp, too pointed. It only lasted for a split second, but it was there. In another clip, a male actor was caught on camera turning to speak to someone, and for a brief moment, his neck seemed to stretch unnaturally, like rubber. The worst part was a scene from a red carpet event. A woman, one of the most recognizable faces in the world, was walking past the cameras when she tripped. As she fell, her hand reached out to brace herself, and for a split second, her fingers bent backward like they were made of jelly. The frame froze on that moment, and the camera zoomed in. Her fingers didn't just bend, they elongated. The video ended with a close-up of her face as she looked up at the camera. Her eyes weren't human, they were black, like a shark's, with tiny glimmers of light moving inside them. I slammed my laptop shut and sat there, heart pounding. I wanted to believe it was fake, some elaborate hoax, but it felt too real. I mean, Hollywood has incredible effects, but this wasn't CGI, this was something else. I thought about deleting the video, but I didn't. Instead, I saved it to a USB drive and shoved it in my desk drawer. I figured I'd sleep on it and decide what to do in the morning. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the video. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those black, glittering eyes staring back at me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some ARG, alternate reality game, or viral marketing stunt. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Something about it felt too raw, too unpolished. The next day, I woke up to a notification on my phone, an email from the forum. The subject line read, "Welcome to the Inner Circle." I didn't remember signing up for anything, but when I opened the email, there was a link to a private chat room. Against every shred of common sense, I clicked it. What I saw next changed everything. When I clicked the link in the email, I half expected my laptop to crash or my antivirus to scream at me. Instead, a plain black chat window popped up. At first, it looked like nobody was there, just a blank screen with a blinking cursor. Then, messages started appearing, one after another, rapid fire. Anonymous. "Welcome, observer." Redacted user. "New meet. This should be good." Deep Truth 420. They always freak out. Place your bets. There were at least a dozen users in the room, all anonymous, all using cryptic usernames. I typed a hesitant "hello," and within seconds, the chat exploded with replies. "Watch us." "Who sent you the link?" Eyes wide open. "Did you see the video?" I admitted I had. Big mistake. Deep Truth 420. "Oh, he's screwed." Anonymous. "You shouldn't have watched it. They'll know now." Watcher. "You're marked." Marked? What the hell did that mean? I asked them to explain, but most of the responses were vague or straight-up nonsense. A few people started arguing, their messages filling the screen too quickly for me to keep up. Finally, someone called Ethereal Signal sent a private message. Ethereal to Signal. "Log out. Get rid of the video. Forget you ever saw it." This isn't a game. Something about their tone sent a shiver down my spine. They weren't screwing around. But before I could reply, someone in the main chat posted a new message. The Puppet Master. "Too late. He's already here." The screen glitched. For a second, I thought it was my internet, but the cursor froze and the chat box flickered. When it came back, everyone else was gone. Just me and the Puppet Master. The Puppet Master. "You shouldn't have looked." The Puppet Master. "But since you did, we'll show you more." I stared at the screen, unsure whether to close the window or keep reading. Then a file started downloading. No prompt, no permission. My mouse wasn't responding and I couldn't stop it. The file was named beyondtruth.mp4. When it finished downloading, the chat window closed on its own and the file opened. This wasn't like the first video. It didn't ease you in with clips and blurry anomalies. It hit you like a truck. The video began with a close-up of a man I recognized instantly. He was a talk show host, the kind you see almost every night on TV. His face filled the screen, but something was wrong. His expression was too still, like he wasn't breathing. Then his eyes blinked sideways. Not up and down, sideways. The camera zoomed out and I could see his hands gripping the edge of a desk. His fingers weren't fingers anymore. They were long, pale tendrils, curling and uncurling like they had a mind of their own. His smile widened, too far, tearing the corners of his mouth. Dark fluid leaked down his chin and he whispered something I couldn't make out. The screen cut to black for a second before a new clip started. This one was worse. A woman, a massive A-list actress, was on stage at an awards show accepting a trophy. She looked normal at first, smiling, waving, but then the footage slowed down. As the camera zoomed in, her face began to shift. Her skin rippled like something underneath was pressing to get out. For a split second, her eyes flashed pitch black, and her teeth, I can't describe them. They weren't teeth, they were jagged, uneven spikes, and they didn't fit in her mouth. She turned toward the audience and smiled, her mouth stretching wider than her head should have allowed. The camera panned to the audience, and I realized they weren't human either. Their faces were distorted, melting, their eyes bulging out of their sockets. Some of them didn't even have faces, just blank, fleshy voids. And they were clapping. The video ended abruptly, cutting to a frame of text. This is what they don't show you. They live among us, they control us, and now they know you know. I sat there, shaking, staring at the screen. I didn't know what to do. My brain was trying to convince me it wasn't real, but it felt real. Too real. Then my phone rang. I jumped so hard I nearly knocked the laptop off my desk. The number was unknown. Against every instinct, I answered it. At first, all I heard was static. Then a voice, a distorted, garbled voice, spoke. "They're coming." The call ended. I felt like I was going to throw up. I ripped the USB drive out of my laptop and shoved it in my pocket. My first thought was to destroy it, but I didn't have the guts. What if I needed proof? What if I needed to show someone? That's when I noticed something. My laptop camera light was on. I slammed the lid shut and threw it across the room. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it might explode. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house, every shadow, felt like it was watching me. At one point, I thought I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door, but when I got up to check, no one was there. The next morning, things got even stranger. I woke up to find my front door unlocked. I know for a fact I locked it before I went to bed. Worse, there was a single piece of paper lying on the floor in front of the door. It was blank, except for one line, written in tiny, perfect handwriting. "Keep digging." I should have stopped then. I should have destroyed the USB and never touched the dark web again, but I didn't. Something about the whole thing gnawed at me like a splinter in my brain. I couldn't just let it go. So I went back. After that night, I didn't touch my laptop for days. I wanted to forget everything. The video, the chat room, the phone call, even the note left at my door. But forgetting wasn't an option. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces. The talk show host with tendrils for fingers, the actress with teeth like knives, the audience of melting shadows. The USB drive sat in my desk drawer like a ticking bomb. I knew I should destroy it, but instead I felt its weight, like it was calling me. I started obsessing, wondering if the people in the video were always like that or if something turned them into whatever they were. The note, "Keep digging," kept circling in my head. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop myself. It felt like I didn't have a choice, like I'd opened a door I couldn't close. One night, after a few drinks to dull my nerves, I turned my laptop back on. I thought about returning to the chat room, but when I tried to log in to the forum, the page was gone. Not like it was down, it didn't exist anymore. Every link I'd bookmarked, every thread I'd read, all of it led to dead ends. That's when I remembered the USB. I plugged it in, half expecting it to fry my computer, but nothing happened at first. Just an empty folder. I was about to pull it out when a single file appeared on the screen. It was a text document named observerlog.txt. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. The document was a list of names, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, written in neat typewriter-like font. Some of the names I didn't recognize, but a lot of them I did. Celebrities, politicians, tech billionaires, they were all there. Beside each name was a date and a status. Most said active, but some were marked retired or expired. I scrolled through the list, my stomach tightening with every name I recognized. Then I got to the bottom and I saw something that made me feel like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My name was there. Next to it was today's date. My status said pending. I slammed the laptop shut and started pacing the room, my mind racing. What the hell did it mean? Pending for what? I felt like I couldn't breathe. My apartment felt smaller, like the walls were closing in on me. That's when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate. 3 slow, heavy knocks at the front door. I froze. It was nearly midnight and I wasn't expecting anyone. I crept to the peephole, heart pounding in my chest. There was no one there. Another knock. Louder this time. I checked the peephole again. Still nothing. I backed away from the door, trying to convince myself it was just a prank. But then I noticed the faintest shadow under the door. Someone, or something, was standing there, just out of view. I grabbed a kitchen knife and backed into the living room, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The knocking stopped, but I didn't relax. The silence was worse. Then my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with another unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but the buzzing wouldn't stop. It felt like the phone was vibrating straight into my skull. When I picked up, a familiar distorted voice spoke. "Why did you stop digging?" I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was full of sand. "Don't make us come in," the voice continued. "You're an observer now. Keep going." The line went dead. The knocking didn't start again, but I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with the knife in my hand, staring at the front door, waiting for something to burst through. By morning, I was delirious. My nerves were shot, and my head felt like it was full of static. I told myself I'd call the cops, but what would I even say? That someone was leaving cryptic notes and videos about inhuman celebrities? They'd either laugh at me or throw me in a psych ward. Instead, I did the one thing I knew I shouldn't do. I went back to my laptop. The USB drive was still plugged in, and when I opened the folder again, the text file was gone. In its place was a video titled Observer Orientation. I hesitated, but I knew I was going to watch it. At this point, it felt inevitable. The video began with a black screen and a low hum, like the sound a TV makes when it's on, but not tuned to a channel. Then text appeared. "Congratulations, observer. You've been chosen to witness the truth." The screen cut to footage of a room that looked like an operating theatre. Bright lights shone down on a metal table in the center. Something was lying on it, covered by a sheet. A group of people in surgical masks and scrubs stood around the table. One of them stepped forward and pulled back the sheet. It was a man, a celebrity I recognized instantly. He was shirtless, and his chest was covered in strange, dark symbols. They didn't look like tattoos, they were moving, pulsing under his skin. One of the people in scrubs held up a scalpel and made a long incision down the man's chest. Instead of blood, a thick, black liquid oozed out. The surgeons peeled back his skin, revealing something underneath that wasn't human. It looked like metal, but it was alive, twitching and pulsing like it was breathing. The camera zoomed in, and I saw something I'll never forget. Inside his chest, under the metallic surface, were hundreds of tiny, glowing eyes, all blinking in unison. The man on the table suddenly lurched forward, his eyes snapping open. They weren't human anymore, they were black, with swirling silver light inside them. He smiled, his teeth jagged and mismatched, and looked straight into the camera. "You're one of us now," he said, his voice distorted like a broken radio. The video ended, and my screen went black. Then a new message popped up. "Welcome, observer. We'll be in touch." Before I could react, my laptop shut itself off. I yanked the USB drive out and threw it across the room. I didn't care about evidence anymore. I just wanted this nightmare to end, but I knew it wouldn't. The list had my name on it. Whatever this was, they'd already decided I was part of it. I didn't leave my apartment for days after watching that video. I couldn't. Every noise, every flicker of movement outside my window felt like it was something or someone watching me. I taped over my laptop camera, unplugged my phone, and even smashed the USB drive into pieces with a hammer. It didn't help. They were still there. I started noticing strange things. A black car parked across the street that never seemed to move. People lingering too long near my building, pretending to look at their phones or read newspapers. My neighbors were acting differently too, staring at me just a little too long when we passed in the hallway, their smiles tight and unnatural. One night I heard scratching at my door. Slow, deliberate scrapes, like nails being dragged down the wood. I didn't even check the peephole. I just sat on the couch, clutching a baseball bat, waiting for it to stop. When it finally did, I found another note slid under the door. This one read, "Why do you hide? There's no escape." By then, I wasn't eating or sleeping much. My paranoia had reached a fever pitch. I started keeping every light in the apartment on, but even that didn't help. Shadows seemed darker than they should have been, and every time I looked in the mirror, I swore something was wrong with my reflection. The worst part was the dreams. In one, I was strapped to the metal table from the video, unable to move. Bright lights blinded me, and shadowy figures stood over me, their faces shifting and flickering like static. They whispered in a language I couldn't understand, their voices sharp and metallic, like knives scraping against glass. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart racing, but the sound of their whispers lingered in my ears. In another dream, I was in the audience of an award show. The room was packed with people I recognized, celebrities, politicians, billionaires, but they weren't clapping or smiling. They were staring at me. Every single one of them, their faces blank and lifeless, their black, swirling eyes fixed on me. When I woke up, I found something even worse. There were new scratches on my bedroom wall, long and deep, as if someone, or something, had been clawing at it. Above my bed, written in what looked like ash or soot, was a single word: observer. That was the moment I broke. I couldn't stay in the apartment anymore. I packed a bag and left, not even caring where I went. I drove for hours, aimlessly, until I ended up in a crappy motel off the highway. It was the kind of place where the paint was peeling and the air conditioner sounded like it was dying, but it felt safer than being home. For a few nights, things were quiet. I kept to myself, barely leaving the room. The motel had spotty Wi-Fi and my phone was still off, but I didn't care. I just wanted to disappear. Then the dreams started again. In one, I was sitting in my car, parked on the side of the road at night. The black car from my neighborhood pulled up behind me, its headlights blinding. I couldn't see who was inside, but I could feel their eyes on me, burning into the back of my skull. Suddenly the headlights went out, and the driver's door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, thin, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a puppet on strings. It walked toward my car, its face hidden in shadow. But as it got closer, I saw its eyes, black, swirling, endless. I woke up gasping for air, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. I checked the motel room door, locked. The window is closed. But I couldn't shake the sense that something was in the room with me. And then my phone buzzed. I froze. I hadn't turned it on since the last call, and I knew, for a fact, it had been powered off. But there it was, lighting up on the bedside table. The screen read, "One new message." My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. The message was from a number I didn't recognize, but the text sent a chill down my spine. "Room 207, look outside." I was in room 207. Slowly, I walked to the window and peeked through the curtain. At first, I didn't see anything, just the empty parking lot, lit by a single, flickering streetlight. But then I noticed something in the far corner, just out of the light's reach. It was a person, or at least it looked like one. They were standing completely still, facing my room. Their head was tilted at an odd angle, and their arms hung limply at their sides. I backed away from the window, heart pounding. My first instinct was to call the front desk, but when I reached for the phone, it rang. This time, I didn't want to answer, but I knew I had to. When I picked up, there was no static, no distortion. Just a calm, steady voice. "Do you see them?" "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. "We've been watching you, observer. You see the truth now. There's no going back." The line went dead. When I looked out the window again, the figure was gone. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. I kept the lights on and the curtains drawn, jumping at every sound. I knew I couldn't run forever, but I didn't know what else to do. Then on the third night, I got an email. It came through on my phone, even though I hadn't connected it to Wi-Fi. The subject line read, "Final Initiation." I didn't open it at first. I just stared at it, my stomach churning. But eventually curiosity, or maybe desperation, won. The email contained a single line of text. "Meet us at these coordinates. Don't be late." Beneath it was a set of GPS coordinates and a time 3:33 a.m. I don't know why I didn't just delete it. I don't know why I packed my bag and got in the car. Maybe I was too far gone, or maybe I knew that no matter where I went, they'd find me. As I drove through the empty, dark roads toward the coordinates, a single thought kept repeating in my head. What happens when I get there? The coordinates led me to the middle of nowhere. A dirt road stretched into the darkness, surrounded by endless, skeletal trees that swayed in the wind like they were alive. My headlights barely cut through the night, and the deeper I drove, the more I felt like I was leaving the world behind. The clock on my dashboard read 3:15 a.m. I was 15 minutes early, but I didn't feel relief. If anything, the silence pressed down on me harder, making it hard to breathe. Finally, the road ended in a clearing. The coordinates matched exactly. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The clearing was empty, no cars, no people. Just a wide, open space beneath a sky that felt too vast, too empty. But as soon as I stepped out of the car, I knew I wasn't alone. The air felt wrong, heavy, electric, like a storm was about to break. I could hear faint whispers just at the edge of hearing, but I couldn't tell where they were coming from. The trees, The ground, my own head. I checked my phone, even though I knew it wouldn't help. The screen lit up with a new notification. Stand in the center. I didn't want to, but my feet moved on their own. It was like I was being pulled forward, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the center of the clearing, the whispers stopped. And then the lights appeared. They were faint at first, like distant stars blinking in and out of existence. But they grew brighter, closer, surrounding the clearing in a perfect circle. I couldn't tell if they were coming from above or below, but they didn't feel like anything I'd ever seen. They were cold, harsh, and unnatural, casting long, jagged shadows across the ground. That's when I heard them. The people, or things, emerged from the darkness, stepping into the circle of light. They moved slowly, deliberately, their forms just barely human. Their limbs were too long, their movements too smooth, like mannequins brought to life. Their faces were the worst part. At first glance, they looked like celebrities. People I'd seen on TV, in movies, on the covers of magazines. But the longer I looked, the more their features shifted, melting and reforming like wax under a flame. Their smiles stretched too wide, their eyes blinked too slowly, and their skin rippled like something was crawling underneath. One of them stepped forward. It was a man, tall, with slicked back hair, and a face so familiar I almost said his name. But when he spoke, his voice wasn't human. It was layered, like dozens of voices speaking in unison. "Welcome, observer," he said. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My body felt paralyzed, locked in place by the weight of their stares. "You've seen the truth," the man continued, "and now you belong to us." "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I didn't ask for this." The crowd laughed, a low, guttural sound that vibrated in my chest. "You didn't have to ask," the man said. "You watched. You listened. And now you're part of the system." "What system?" I demanded, finding my voice. "What the hell are you?" The man tilted his head, his smile growing wider. "We are what you aspire to be. We are perfection, immortality, control." I shook my head, taking a step back. "You're monsters!" The lights grew brighter and the air buzzed with electricity. The man's face twisted into something unrecognizable, his eyes black and swirling, his mouth splitting open to reveal rows of jagged teeth. "You misunderstand," he said. "We are evolution, and you are the bridge." Before I could react, the ground beneath me began to vibrate. The circle of lights pulsed, growing brighter and brighter until they burned into my retinas. I tried to shield my eyes, but my arms wouldn't move. And then they came for me. The figures closed in, their movements impossibly fast. Hands, if you could call them that, grabbed at me, their touch cold and unrelenting. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. One of them pressed its face close to mine, its features shifting wildly. For a moment, it looked like my own face staring back at me, its mouth moving in perfect sync with mine. "Let go," it whispered, its voice echoing in my head. "Become one of us." The lights intensified, and the world dissolved into a swirling, blinding vortex. I felt my body being pulled apart, my thoughts unraveling like threads. Images flashed in my mind, faces I knew, places I'd been, memories that weren't mine. And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was back in my apartment. At first, I thought it was a dream, a vivid, horrifying nightmare. But when I looked in the mirror, I knew it wasn't. My eyes weren't the same. They looked normal at first glance, but when I tilted my head just right, I saw it. A faint, swirling light deep inside them, like tiny galaxies trapped beneath the surface. I don't know what they did to me, I don't know what I am now, but I do know one thing: they're watching me. I see them in the faces on TV, in the crowds on the street, even in the reflections in the mirror. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I hear their whispers. They're waiting. And soon they'll come for you too.